My twins told the Alpha King, you look like us, unaware he's their father. The Northern Realm had not known peace until Alpha King K.L. Draven took the throne. Before him, the packs were divided. Each territory had its own leader, its own pride, its own hunger for power. Borders were stained with rivalry.
Alliances were broken as quickly as they were formed.
The land itself seemed restless. Then K.L. rose. He was not the eldest son of the royal line. He was not the most favored by the council. But he was the strongest. And strength, in the wolf realm, was law. He united the fractured packs not only through battle, but through vision. He promised stability.
He promised protection. He promised a kingdom where no pack would starve while another overflowed with wealth.
Brand.
And he delivered. Years passed, and his rule became legend.
Yet behind the throne, behind the heavy doors carved with ancient runes, K.L. Draven carried something no one could see. Emptiness. The throne room was vast, built of stone darker than midnight. Tall silver banners hung from pillars shaped like frozen flames. Torches burned with steady blue fire, enchanted to never fade. Kale sat upon the high seat carved from a single piece of black marble. His posture was perfect. His presence commanded silence. His eyes, sharp and silver gray, missed nothing. The council spoke of trade routes and border disputes, of treaties and minor rebellions in the eastern hills. Kyle listened, gave orders, made decisions with calm authority. But his mind was elsewhere. There had once been laughter in these halls. Not loud, not careless, but warm. A memory flickered. A woman standing near the balcony, wind in her dark hair, sunlight soft on her face. She had never bowed to him like the others did. She had looked at him as if he were only a man. Her name was a quiet ache in his chest. She had vanished the night everything changed.
It had been the same night he discovered betrayal within his council. Trusted allies had plotted to challenge his claim before his coronation.
That night, he fought not only enemies in the shadows, but doubt in his own heart. And when he reached for the one person who had always stood beside him, she was gone. No message. No explanation. That is only silence. From that silence, Kale built walls higher than the castle towers. He told himself she chose fear over him, that she did not want to stand beside a king whose life would never be simple. He convinced himself that love was weakness. It was easier that way. Desperation. Now, years later, the kingdom thrived. But the Alpha King had no queen.
And nowhere! The elders whispered about it in private chambers.
A kingdom without an heir invited uncertainty. Power demanded legacy. The wolf bloodline was ancient. It could not end with him. Cal ignored the pressure. He would not choose a mate for politics.
He would not pretend affection for the sake of appearance. If he ever stood beside someone again, it would be real.
But deep inside, he believed that part of his life was already buried. Far from the capital, near the border where forests grew thick and mountains cut the sky, a small village rested in quiet harmony. The houses were simple, built from stone and warm timber. Smoke rose gently from chimneys. Children ran across open fields, their laughter blending with the wind. In a modest home near the edge of the forest lived Lyra Vale. She was no longer the carefree woman who once stood in palace sunlight. Time had shaped her. Strength had replaced softness. Her eyes still carried warmth, but they also carried caution.
Inside her home, two children argued over a wooden practice sword. "You hold it wrong," said the boy, his silver eyes flashing with determination.
"I do not," replied the girl, equally stubborn, her expression mirroring his perfectly. They looked like reflections of each other. The same dark hair. Same sharp jawline. Same striking silver-gray eyes. Eyes that did not belong to Lyra. "Enough," Lyra said gently, stepping between them. Training is not about winning against each other. It is about control. They respected her deeply. 7 years old, yet stronger than most children their age. Faster. Sharper. Sometimes their instincts frightened even her. She had seen signs early. Their first transformation had happened before most wolf-born children even felt their shift stirring. It had been instinctive, natural, powerful. Too powerful. Lyra knew the truth every time she looked at them.
"They carried royal blood. She had left the capital before anyone could suspect."
Before whispers could grow into threats, before the prophecy could take shape in dangerous hands. Because there had been a prophecy, spoken in secret by the oldest seer of the realm. The Alpha's heirs will carry both shadow and light. If raised in fear, they will divide the kingdom. If raised in truth, they will unite what was once broken. Lyra did not fear her children. She feared what others would do because of them. 3 soldiers stood outside, wearing the silver crest of the Alpha King. Her heart dropped. The leader stepped forward respectfully. By royal decree, all wolf-born children of age 7 must attend the celestial gathering in the capital. The blood moon rises in 3 weeks. The Alpha King commands presence.
Lyra's breath felt thin. The celestial gathering happened only once every decade.
It was a sacred ceremony meant to strengthen unity among packs. Children would stand before the throne, blessed under moonlight, acknowledged as the next generation of the realm. Avoiding it would raise suspicion. Attending it would risk everything. The twins watched her carefully.
"Are we going to see the Alpha King?" the girl asked, excitement lighting her face. "They say he is the strongest wolf alive," the boy added.
Lyra forced a calm smile. Yes. You will see him. And she would see him too.
After 7 years, the journey to the capital took several days.
But the closer they traveled, the more the air seemed to shift. The mountains gave way to tall stone walls that surrounded the royal city. The capital was magnificent. Bridges arched over glittering canals. Markets bustled with life. Silver flags bearing the wolf crest fluttered proudly above every tower. The twins stared in awe. Lyra kept her hood low. When they entered the palace gates, memory struck her like waves, the scent of polished stone, aberration, the echo of footsteps in long corridors, the distant hum of enchanted torches. Nothing had changed, and everything had. The throne hall filled quickly with families from every pack. Children lined up in organized rows, each waiting to step forward and bow before the Alpha King. Brrr. At the far end of the hall, beneath high arching windows, Kale sat upon his throne. Time had refined him. He looked broader, stronger, carved from authority itself. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried quiet intensity. He did not smile easily. One by one, children approached. Aberration.
They bowed. He acknowledged them.
Aberration. The ceremony moved smoothly. Then it was the twins' turn. Bah. Lyra's hands trembled slightly as they stepped forward. The boy walked with natural confidence. Aberration. The girl held her chin high. They stopped at the foot of the throne. Aberration. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. Kale looked at them. Aberration. At first, it was simple observation. Then, something shifted. Great. His gaze sharpened. The silver in their eyes matched his exactly. Aberration. Not similar. Identical. A strange tension filled the air. The torches flickered. The girl tilted her head slightly, studying him with open curiosity. Brett. The boy stepped half a step closer. "You look like us," he said plainly. Breath. A quiet ripple moved through the hall. Breath. He felt it then. A pull. Bert. Not political. Not logical. Aberration. Instinct. His wolf stirred beneath his skin. Not in aggression, but recognition. His voice, when he spoke, was steady but lower than before. "What are your names?" The boy answered first. Ar. The girl followed. Arya. The names struck him like distant echoes of something unfinished. Aberration. Behind them, Lyra lifted her head slowly. Their eyes met. 7 years collapsed into a single heartbeat. Shock, barrage, pain. Unanswered questions. And something else. Something that had never truly died.
Kale rose from his throne.
Brit. The Alpha King did not rise during ceremonies, but he was not looking at the crowd. He was looking at Lyra. The past was no longer buried. And standing before him were 2 living truths he could not ignore. For the first time in years, Kale Draven did not feel like a king. He felt like a man who had just realized his life had been rewritten without his knowledge. And somewhere deep inside, beneath power and pride and control, Aberration. The ceremony ended in quiet tension. And as Lyra guided the twins away, she felt the weight of the storm forming behind her. Because she knew one thing with certainty, Aberration. Kale would not let this go. And neither would fate. After the ceremony, the palace corridor seemed narrower than before, almost oppressive. Kale walked silently, his boots echoing against polished stone. Aberration. His mind was a storm he could not quell. 2 children. His children. 2 lives that bore his blood. Bram. 2 lives that had grown without him. He had ruled the kingdom for years. Yet this revelation shook him more than any rebellion or battle ever had. He had built walls around his heart. He had convinced himself that love was weakness, and yet standing in the throne room, the twins' eyes had pierced through every layer of his armor. Her posture careful, her every movement measured. Cale's gaze followed her. 7 years had passed since he had last seen her. He remembered her as the woman who had smiled with unguarded light, who had trusted him even when everyone else had turned away. Now, she was cautious, her strength tempered with restraint. She had survived. She had hidden them. And she had lied. The corridors opened to a private chamber, a smaller room with low windows, heavy curtains, and a fireplace that burned quietly. Cale gestured sharply. "Stay here," he commanded. His voice was calm, but the tension under it vibrated like a storm. "I will speak with your mother." Lyra nodded, holding the children's hands tightly. "Yes, Your Majesty," she said, but her eyes did not bow. They were defiant.
Cale motioned for the guards to leave, and the doors shut with a heavy thud.
Silence filled the room. He looked at her and did not speak immediately.
Instead, he measured her as he would measure an opponent on the battlefield, precise, calculating, yet with an undercurrent of uncertainty. "You left," he said finally, his voice steady but low.
7 years ago, you disappeared without a word. Lyra's eyes flickered. She had expected this, but not the calm intensity in his gaze.
"I had no choice," she said softly. "I left to protect them." Cale's brow furrowed. "Protect them? From what?" "From you," she whispered, though she did not flinch. "From the kingdom. From the prophecy." "Explain."
Lyra took a deep breath. She could not hide the truth any longer.
The prophecy, it spoke of your heirs. It said that the children born from your bloodline would carry both shadow and light.
If the children were raised in fear, they would bring ruin. If they were raised in truth, they could unite the realm.
7 years ago, your council discovered the prophecy.
Some sought to use the children as leverage. I had to take them away before the danger reached them. Cale felt his chest tighten. Rage flared, then subsided, leaving behind something heavier. Pain. His voice was quiet, but edged with steel.
You never told me.
Not a word. Lyra met his gaze. I could not risk it. I could not risk losing them. Or you. For a moment, silence stretched between them, thick and charged. Cale's wolf instinct stirred, sensing the truth, yet struggling with the betrayal. He had imagined every reason for her disappearance. Fear, cowardice, abandonment, but never protection. You, risked everything, he said finally. His voice was lower now, almost a whisper. Including your life. She nodded. They are too important to lose.
The twins were waiting outside, unaware that their mother and the king were speaking of a past they could not yet understand.
But Cale could not ignore them. He needed to see them again, to study the children who bore his own eyes. his own blood. Aberration. He stepped out of the chamber. The twins froze.
Kale knelt slightly to be level with them. His presence was commanding, yet not threatening.
Arya, he said carefully. I am Kale Draven.
Your father. The words hung in the air like a spell. The children blinked. Lyra's hand rested on their shoulders, steadying them. The boy Arin stepped forward with cautious courage. Father, he asked, his voice small but determined. Kale's chest tightened. Yes, he said.
I am your father, and I should have known you existed.
Bury. I failed you. The girl, Arya, tilted her head. We have waited a long time to meet you. Kyle felt a mixture of shame, awe, and something unfamiliar. Hope. 7 years lost, yet here they were. Alive, pair. Strong. Unafraid. Lyra watched quietly, feeling a mixture of relief and tension. The moment was fragile. Desperation. One wrong move, and everything could shatter.
Kale Draven was not a man used to vulnerability.
Desperation. And yet he had knelt in acknowledgement of his children. That night, Kale ordered the twins' chambers to be prepared within the castle walls. Lyra was hesitant. She had kept them hidden for a reason. But Kale insisted. He would not have them separated from him now that he knew their existence. Desperation. As they settled in their new rooms, the twins' powers began to stir. Small, subtle displays at first, shadows flickering at the corners of their vision. Sudden bursts of speed, their ears twitching in tune with distant sounds. Desperation. Lyra noticed and felt a familiar fear stir in her heart. She had trained them to control it. But magic, like blood, had its own will. Desperation. The next morning, Kale invited Lyra to the council chambers. The council was already assembled. Noble faces filled with curiosity, suspicion, and quiet awe.
They had heard rumors of the children, but no one had seen them. Kale addressed the council.
These children are my heirs. They are part of this kingdom, and I will not allow anyone to question their legitimacy.
Bird. Some elders bowed in respect. Others stared in disbelief. Kale's eyes swept the room, sharp and commanding. Desperation.
Their mother and I will ensure they are trained, guided, and protected. That is all you need to know.
Desperation. He demanded it, and the room fell silent. Desperation. Later, in private, Kale and Lyra walked through the palace gardens. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of early spring flowers. And statues of wolves in mid-leap lined the marble paths. Sunlight caught in Kale's silver eyes, revealing the weight he carried. King, warrior, and now father.
7 years, Kale said quietly. 7 years I did not know.
Desperation.
Lyra looked at him, her expression a mixture of apology and determination. I did what I thought was right.
I had no choice. Kale's jaw tightened. Desperation.
You had a choice. You could have told me.
Desperation. I could have, she admitted softly. But the council was dangerous.
They would have taken them from me, from you. Kale remained silent for a moment.
Then he sighed, a sound heavy with both exhaustion and something he had not felt in years. Vulnerability.
I failed to protect them, he said quietly.
Desperation. I failed to protect you. Lyra reached for his hand. Not as a subject, not as a former lover, but as someone who had once shared his heart. Breath. He did not pull away. Their fingers intertwined, a connection fragile yet undeniable. Brr.
The twins watched from a distance, sensing the shift in the air. They were beginning to understand the complexity of adults, their regrets, their power, their hidden fears.
That evening, a strange tension settled over the palace. Magic, subtle yet powerful, stirred in the shadows. Inspiration. Whispers of the prophecy reached the ears of those who sought to exploit it. The council advisor, a man whose loyalty had always been questioned, observed quietly. Brr. His eyes lingered on the twins, on Kale, on Lyra. He smiled faintly, knowing the balance of power was beginning to shift. Back in their chambers, the twins lay awake. Arya spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. Inspiration. Do you think he really is our father?
Aaron nodded. He has to be.
Inspiration. I can feel it in him. Lyra sat nearby, watching them, her own heart both proud and wary. Inspiration. They were growing too quickly, their strength already remarkable. She knew that the coming months would test them all, not just the children, but Kael and even herself. Inspiration. Night fell over the capital. The castle, usually silent, seemed alive with whispers of destiny and the weight of prophecy. Inspiration. Kael stood at his window, looking out over the city. The moon was rising, full and luminous. Inspiration. Its silver light reflected in his eyes, mirroring the eyes of the children he had just met. He whispered into the night, more to himself than anyone else. I will protect them, no matter what it takes.
A distant howl echoed from the mountains beyond the city walls.
Inspiration. The sound was a reminder of the wild, of the dangers that lurked beyond palace safety. But Kael did not flinch. He had faced death many times, fought wars, and conquered rivals. Yet this fatherhood was unlike anything he had known. Somewhere deep within, he felt the stirrings of hope, of a future that was not defined by fear or solitude. But fate had other plans for it. From the shadows of the council chambers, unseen eyes observed Kael and the twins. Whispers of dark magic began to gather. Inspiration. Old curses, long dormant, sensed the awakening of the royal heirs. A storm was coming, a storm of shadow and power that would test loyalty, strength, and the bonds of family. Inspiration. And as the moon rose higher, Lyra felt a chill she could not explain. Something ancient had noticed the children. Burrs. Something old, patient, and dangerous. The first threads of destiny had been pulled. Birth. And nothing would ever be the same again. The palace had never felt so alive. Or so dangerous. Inspiration. The full moon hung in the sky like a silver coin, spilling its light across the marble courtyards. Kael walked among the twins as they trained under the watchful eyes of the palace instructors, but he was not truly watching their movements. His mind was on the prophecy, on Lyra, on the council, and on something he could not yet name. The children were extraordinary. Their speed was unmatched.
Their reflexes were sharper than any wolf born of their age. And yet, beneath their playful laughter, Kael sensed the stirring of something old.
Something dangerous. He had felt it the first night they arrived. The shadow in their magic, faint but insistent. He knew instinctively that the prophecy was more than words. Inspiration. It was a living force. It could shape the kingdom, and it could destroy it.
Father, Arn said, suddenly breaking Kael from his thoughts. I can feel it.
Inspiration, like a shadow in my chest. Kale stopped. Bree. His hand rested on the boy's shoulder. You are not alone, he said, quietly. Brr.
Whatever it is, we will face it together. Arya, the girl, nodded. We do not want to hurt anyone, she added.
But it is strong. Kale's eyes narrowed. He had not seen fear in them, only caution, desperation. And yet he knew the danger was very real. He had faced armies, betrayals, and darkness in the past, but nothing like this.
This was something that pulsed in their blood, in their very essence. Meanwhile, in the council chambers, eyes that should have been loyal watched with growing interest. The chief advisor, a man named Varric, had served Kael since before the coronation, but his loyalty was complicated. He had always envied Kael's rise, and now, with the children emerging, his envy took on new form.
The Alpha's heirs, Varric murmured, studying reports and scrolls in dim candlelight, will change everything. If we can guide them, or control them, we can guide the kingdom.
He smiled faintly. His ambition was subtle, wrapped in words of service.
But beneath that careful veneer, he had plans that could shatter the throne. Kael's intuition sensed it. Something in the air was wrong, but for now he had more immediate concerns. The children's magic was growing stronger, and he needed to understand it before it became uncontrollable. That evening he brought Lyra and the twins to the high tower. The tower overlooked the city and beyond it, the forests that stretched to the mountains. The wind was sharp and cool, carrying scents of pine and earth. Your abilities are part of your blood, Kael explained. They will grow with you. But if you do not learn control, they can harm others and yourselves. The twins nodded, absorbing his words with a seriousness beyond their years. Kael studied them. He realized that they were not only his children, but mirrors of his own youth. The same fire, the same instinctive connection to the wolf blood that had defined him. He extended his hand, showing them how to center their strength. Focus, he said. Breathe with the rhythm of your heart. Listen. Listen to me. Your power is not a curse. It is a tool. If you master it, you can protect what is most important. For a moment, harmony settled. The moonlight illuminated their faces, silver on silver. Kael felt something he had not felt in years, hope that the future might not be as lonely as the past. But darkness rarely stayed hidden. Later that night, in the shadowed corners of the palace, Varric moved silently. He had been studying the twins from afar, noting the subtle manifestations of their power. He had read the old prophecies. He had listened to whispers of curses long buried in the royal bloodline. And he had decided. The Alpha's heirs will awaken fully under the blood moon, he murmured, his hand tracing the lines of an ancient sigil carved into parchment. If they are unprepared, the kingdom will fall. He began a forbidden ritual, one that had not been attempted for centuries. The flames on his altar burned with a strange hue, purple and black, flickering unnaturally. Symbols of binding and awakening danced across the floor in light. Magic responded to magic, and the air in the palace thickened with energy. It slithered through corridors and halls, brushing against the twins' chambers like a living thing. Kael felt it first in his dreams. A whispering, a tug on his consciousness, a sense that something beyond human malice had stirred. His wolf instincts awoke fully. He paced the tower chambers restless, sensing the approach of danger he could not yet name. The next day, the ceremony for the blood moon began. All packs were gathered in the central courtyard. Torches burned, enchanted to resist the wind. Nobles and elders watched with a mixture of reverence and fear. The twins were positioned at the center. Lyra held their hands, grounding them as Kale stepped forward. The air shimmered, charged with the tension of the prophecy awakening.
Orin felt it first, a surge of energy that made his teeth ache and his ears tingle.
Shadows flickered unnaturally at the edges of the courtyard. Arya's hair lifted in static, her hands trembling as if the wind carried electric fire. Kale stepped closer, his presence anchoring them. "Do not fight," he commanded. "Control it. Focus on each other." "Trust me. The ritual begun by Varric took effect." Shadows surged, weaving through the courtyard like snakes of smoke and light. Nobles cried out in alarm. The twins struggled to contain their powers, instinct clashing with control. Suddenly the shadows lashed toward the crowd. "Birds!" Kale roared, and the wolf within him surged. He leapt forward, catching the energy and absorbing it, creating a protective barrier around the children and those nearby. The crowd gasped. Magic of this intensity had not been witnessed in decades. Fear, mixed with awe. Lyra ran to the twins, holding them close. "You are safe," she said, her voice firm yet gentle. "I am here." "Father is here." Kael's eyes met hers for a fleeting moment. The anger of years, the hurt of betrayal, and the longing for what they had lost, all collided in that glance. There was no doubt now. They were connected again. Not just as parents, but as allies in the storm that had begun. But the battle was not over. Burrick, hidden in shadows, observed with cold satisfaction. The children had reacted exactly as he had predicted. He had set the curse in motion, and now the kingdom would tremble before the weight of their awakening. Kale's wolf senses screamed the truth. This was only the beginning. The prophecy's shadow was real, and it was feeding on fear, doubt, and ambition. The twins, exhausted and trembling, clung to Lyra. Kale knelt beside them, placing a hand on each of their shoulders. "You are stronger than you realize," he said. "Do not let fear control you." "We will face this together," Arn whispered. "Father, it hurts. The shadow.
Kale's eyes softened.
"I know," he said. "But we are stronger together." Trust me. Trust each other. Arya looked at him, determination in her young eyes. "We will try." "We promise." Kale allowed himself a brief moment of pride. The children were not only powerful, they were brave, and perhaps with guidance, they could master what he himself had only begun to understand. Night fell and the palace seemed quieter, but Kale could not rest. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing against him heavier than any armor. The shadow magic had not fully faded. Something ancient had been awakened. Something that had waited for centuries for the blood of the Alpha King to stir it. He knew the council could no longer be trusted fully. Some had already begun whispering about the children, about the prophecy, about Kale's ability to protect the realm. And in that moment he realized the full truth of his life. He was no longer only a king. He was a father, a protector, a guide, and a target. Breathless, Lyra stood nearby watching him. She felt the same weight pressing on her shoulders, but she also felt a glimmer of hope. The family she had shielded for so long was finally together. But the storm had only begun. As Kale looked toward the horizon, he noticed shadows moving unnaturally along the distant hills. Wolves, or something darker, prowled just beyond the palace walls. The prophecy was stirring. And Varric's plans were far from finished.
The first threads of betrayal had been spun.
The first test of power had begun, and the Alpha King for the first time realized that the greatest battles he would face were not with armies or rival kings, but with the darkness rising from within his own bloodline. Desperation. He clenched his fists, silver light from the moon reflecting in his eyes. "We are ready," he whispered. "We will face this together." The twins nestled close, their small hands in his, their hearts beating in time with his. Desperation. Lyra joined them, forming a circle of trust, strength, and love. And somewhere in the shadowed corners of the palace, Varric smiled. The true test of the prophecy was about to begin. The kingdom had changed. Forever. Desperation. The palace had never felt so heavy. Shadows lingered in corners where light should have reached, and every corridor carried the weight of unspoken threats. Kale Draven stood in the throne room, silent, watching his children sleep. Arya and Arryn, despite their bravery, were exhausted. Their powers had surged during the Blood Moon ceremony, and though Kale had helped anchor them, the darkness remained. A shadow that would not let go easily.
Lyra sat beside the twins' beds, her hands resting lightly on their shoulders.
She had never felt more weary, but also more resolute. The danger had grown beyond what she had imagined. And yet, for the first time in years, the family she had protected was together. She let herself feel it. The fragile, brilliant hope. Kale's mind was a storm. The full weight of the prophecy had settled upon him. Desperation. It was not a simple curse. It was a test, one that would challenge everything he believed about power, about love, about himself. Desperation. He had spent years thinking the world required strength without compromise. Now he understood that strength alone was not enough. Footsteps echoed in the corridor, and Kale straightened. Lyra's eyes met his, a silent question passing between them. "Burrs. It's time," she said softly. "We cannot wait any longer." "The shadow will grow if we do nothing." Kale nodded, steeling himself. "We face it together." The throne room had been transformed. Symbols of protection and binding were etched into the floor. A mixture of old magic and wolf-born power. Desperation. Torches burned with a pale blue light, and a hush had fallen over the gathered council. Some had arrived willingly, some had been summoned. Every pair of eyes was on Kale and his family. Varric, the advisor, stood at the back. Desperation. His expression was calm, but the gleam in his eyes betrayed anticipation. He had set events in motion months ago, and now he watched to see if his manipulation would succeed. Desperation. Kale stepped forward, holding Lyra's hand. The twins flanked him, their small hands gripping his tightly. The air shimmered with their combined power, the light of their wolf blood intertwined with shadows that threatened to overwhelm them. Kale's voice rang out, steady and commanding. "The prophecy speaks not of destruction, but of truth. The darkness you fear is not theirs. It is ours to confront, together." The council murmured, and Varric's eyes narrowed. He had expected fear, hesitation, and conflict. Instead, Kale's resolve shone like steel. The shadows in the room shifted, coiling around the children like living tendrils. Inspiration. The air grew thick, charged with the intensity of unleashed power. Arya and Aaron trembled but did not falter.
Kale knelt beside them. Trust yourselves,
he said. Trust each other. Trust me. Lyra stepped closer, placing a hand on Kale's shoulder. You are not alone, Kale. None of you are. Together, we can face this. For the first time, Kale allowed himself to feel the full weight of his emotions. Fear, guilt, longing, and love. He had spent years isolating himself, believing that power without attachment was strength. Now he knew that vulnerability, connection, was the truest power he possessed. A sudden surge of darkness leapt toward the family. Aryan instinctively stepped forward, his small hands glowing with light that clashed against the shadow. Arya mirrored him, their energies intertwining. The shadows hissed, recoiling from the purity and strength of the bond forming between father, mother, and children. Kale rose, his presence amplifying their power. His wolf blood responded fully, his senses flaring, his instincts sharpening. He reached out, touching the children's foreheads in a gesture that anchored their energy. The shadows faltered, then twisted, seeking another weakness. Barak stepped forward, chanting under his breath, his ritual attempting to redirect the dark magic. But Kale anticipated the move. He met the advisor's gaze, and with a gesture of authority, he channeled the children's energy, the light and shadow coalescing into a force that nullified Varric's manipulation. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Torches flickered. The air itself seemed to hum with the resonance of their combined power. The council could only watch, awed and fearful, as the Alpha King and his children became a single force, a living testament to the prophecy's true meaning. Together! Kale shouted, his voice carrying over the turmoil. The twins' hands met his, the bond between them forming a circle of protection and light. The shadows recoiled, then dissolved, leaving only the faint shimmer of residual energy in the room. Silence followed, a silence heavy with relief, reverence, and a sense of destiny fulfilled. Varric fell to his knees, defeated, his scheme unraveling before his eyes. Kale's presence was absolute.
The advisor's ambition crumbled in the face of the family united. Kale turned to the council, his voice calm but unyielding.
This kingdom stands on truth, not fear. The heirs of the Alpha King are not threats. They are the future.
We will guide them with wisdom, strength, and love. Any who oppose this are no longer welcome in my service.
The council bowed in respect. Some out of fear, yes, but many out of recognition of the truth Kale had displayed.
Leadership was more than power. It was vision, courage, and the willingness to face darkness not only outside, but inside.
Lyra stepped forward, meeting Kale's gaze. Dee, you have changed, she said softly. Not because the prophecy forced you, but because you allowed yourself to feel.
Kale allowed a small, almost imperceptible smile.
I was never truly alone, he admitted. Not anymore.
Their eyes reflected the moonlight, silver and unwavering. Father, Arya said, we can feel the magic.
It doesn't scare us anymore. Kale nodded.
Good! You are ready for what comes next!
Outside the palace, the wolves of the northern packs howled, their voices carrying across forests and mountains. Something ancient had stirred with the family's awakening, and the realm responded. The bonds of loyalty and respect were renewed, stronger than before.
That night, Kale, Lyra, and the twins stood together on the balcony of the high tower. The city lay beneath them, quiet and peaceful, bathed in the silver light of the moon. For the first time, the Alpha King did not feel the weight of solitude pressing upon him. You have returned to me, Kale said softly, looking at Lyra. And I am grateful. Lyra smiled, though her eyes held the depth of years spent waiting.
We never truly left, she said. Not you. Not them. We were always waiting for this moment.
Aaron leaned against Kale, Arya beside Lyra, their small bodies a living reminder of hope and renewal. Kale's wolf instincts stirred, but not with the wild intensity of battle. This was calm, measured, protective, the instincts of a father and a king united. In the days that followed, the kingdom adjusted to the presence of the new heirs. The twins trained openly, their powers guided carefully, their strength respected by all who saw it. Kale and Lyra worked together, not only as parents but as leaders, balancing the demands of rulership with the responsibilities of family. Varric was banished from the palace, his schemes exposed. Other threats were addressed. Alliances strengthened, and the prophecy's weight began to shift from a shadow of fear to a symbol of hope. And yet, there were signs that the story was far from over. The twins bore a faint mark on their wrists, glowing softly under moonlight. It was not a curse. It was a legacy. Something older than the palace, older than the kingdom, waiting for its time. Kale noticed it but did not speak. He understood that some truths must unfold slowly. Patience, like strength, was a skill to be mastered. The Alpha King had faced betrayal, prophecy, and darkness.
He had reclaimed what was lost. He had embraced vulnerability and found strength in connection.
He was no longer only a king, he was a father. A protector. A guide. A man reborn through love, through responsibility, and through the courage to face the shadows within and around him. Lyra rested her head against his shoulder. The twins slept between them, the quiet rise and fall of their breaths a gentle rhythm that echoed in Kale's heart. The castle was silent. Peace had returned, for now. But Kale knew the lessons of the past. Darkness could rise again. Power could be misused. The balance of the realm was fragile, yet as he gazed at his family's silver eyes reflecting the moonlight, he whispered quietly, almost to himself, "We are ready for whatever comes next. Together." And for the first time in decades, the Alpha King believed it. The prophecy had not destroyed the kingdom. It had revealed it. It had forged a family, united by blood, courage, and love. And the Northern Realm would never forget the night the king was reborn, not as a ruler alone, but as a father, a partner, and a man who had learned that true strength comes not from isolation, but from the bonds that hold us together. Outside, the wolves howled in the distance, a song of celebration and vigilance.
The kingdom slept. For now, secure in the hands of those who understood what it meant to truly protect.
Desperate. And in the shadows of the distant mountains, something ancient watched. It waited, patient, respectful of the family that had conquered fear and embraced destiny. The night was still. The moon shone bright.
And the story of the Alpha King and his heirs, though only beginning in legend, was written in silver light across the Northern Realm.